How does it feel knowing the entire world is watching you receive an award while the woman who tried to destroy you is cleaning toilets for minimum wage? The reporter's microphone hovered inches from my face, and I should have felt triumphant. I should have smiled for the cameras, given some gracious answer about forgiveness and moving forward. But all I could think about was that door. That locked door. The sound of the deadbolt sliding into place while I stood on the other side in my graduation gown, my diploma still warm from the printer, my future crumbling with every second that ticked by. You know what's funny about karma? Sometimes it doesn't whisper. Sometimes it arrives in a helicopter with camera crews and international press, landing on your college lawn while the person who tried to break you watches from behind bars of their own making. Sometimes justice doesn't feel like victory at all. Sometimes it just feels like finally being able to breathe. My name is Dakota Pierce, and this is the story of how I went from a homeless teenager locked out of her own home on what should have been the proudest day of her life to standing on a stage in Geneva, accepting the Global Youth Humanitarian Award while my stepmother's mugshot circulated on social media. But before we get to the helicopter, before we get to the moment that changed everything, I need you to understand something about hope. I need you to understand how easily it can be weaponized against you. Hey, how are you all doing out there? Wherever you're watching this from, whether you're bundled up against the cold or sweating in the summer heat, I want you to know this story is for anyone who's ever felt invisible. For anyone who's ever been told they don't matter. For anyone who's ever had someone look them in the eye and smile while planning their destruction. Drop a like if you've ever trusted the wrong person. Subscribe if you want to hear how I turned the worst day of my life into the beginning of everything I'd ever dreamed of. And please, share this with someone who needs to know that the people who try to dim your light usually end up burning themselves. But let me start from the beginning. Let me take you back to when I still believed that family meant something. I was 19 years old when my life was supposed to start. 19, full of dreams, top of my class, acceptance letter to medical school already framed on my desk. I believed in hard work. I believed that if you kept your head down, studied until your eyes burned, volunteered until your feet ached, that good things would eventually come. I believed that my stepmother, Victoria, actually cared about me. I believed that when she hugged me after my father's funeral 3 years earlier and whispered, "I'll take care of you, sweetheart. I promise," that she meant it. I believed in a lot of stupid things back then. My father, James Pierce, died of a heart attack when I was 16. One minute he was mowing the lawn, humming some old rock song, waving at me through the window where I sat doing homework. The next minute, my whole world stopped. He married Victoria when I was 14, 2 years after my mom lost her battle with cancer. I was so desperate for a mother figure that I didn't see the red flags. I didn't notice how Victoria's smile never quite reached her eyes when she looked at me. I didn't question why she was always so interested in my father's business, his accounts, his will. The day he died, something changed in Victoria. The mask started slipping, but so gradually that I convinced myself I was imagining it. The warm meals became frozen dinners. The questions about my day became grunts from behind her phone. The encouragement about my grades became comments about how some people peak in high school. But she still signed my permission slips. She still showed up to parent-teacher conferences. She still played the role when anyone was watching. I should have known something was wrong 6 months before graduation. That's when Victoria started bringing Derek around. Derek Holloway was everything my father wasn't. Where Dad had been gentle and thoughtful, Derek was loud and crude. Where Dad had encouraged my dreams of becoming a doctor, Derek made jokes about girls who thought too much. He moved into our house, into my father's bedroom, without even the pretense of a proper relationship first. One day he wasn't there. The next day his truck was in the driveway, and his hunting trophies were on the mantle where my mother's photos used to be. "Dakota, this is Derek," Victoria said that first night, not even looking at me. "He's going to be staying with us." Not asking. Telling. I was in my room studying for the SATs when I heard them talking in the kitchen. The house had thin walls, a fact I'd never appreciated until that moment. "When does she leave?" Derek's voice, rough from years of cigarettes. "June 15th. Right after graduation." Victoria's voice was different when she thought I couldn't hear. Harder. Colder. The second she turns 18 and gets that diploma, she's out. And the money? Already handled. James was stupid enough to leave everything in a trust for her education, but there are loopholes. Medical power of attorney, estate management fees, cost of living adjustments. By the time the lawyers finish processing everything, there won't be enough left for community college, let alone medical school. I remember my hands shaking so hard I couldn't hold my pencil. I remember the way my stomach dropped, that sick feeling of free falling with nothing to catch you. But I also remember thinking, I must have misheard. She wouldn't do that. She promised Dad she'd take care of me. That's the thing about betrayal. Your brain fights it. You make excuses. You rewrite the narrative to make it hurt less. I worked 3 jobs that final semester. Mornings at the coffee shop on campus, afternoons tutoring kids in chemistry, nights waitressing at a diner where the tips were decent if you could handle the grabby regulars. Every penny went into a savings account Victoria didn't know about. Every spare moment went into my studies, into my applications, into building a future she couldn't touch. My guidance counselor, Mrs. Chun, was the one who nominated me for the scholarship programs. Dozens of them. Full rides, partial rides, anything that might get me out and into college without needing the trust fund Victoria was systematically draining. Dakota, you're one of the brightest students I've seen in 30 years, Mrs. Chun told me, her office smelling like jasmine tea and old books. Your volunteer hours alone would qualify you for half these programs. 400 hours at the Children's Hospital? Teaching science to underprivileged kids? Building houses with Habitat for Humanity? You're exactly what these organizations are looking for. But scholarships took time. Applications required essays, references, interviews. Medical school acceptance didn't mean anything without the money to pay for it. And Victoria was always watching, always asking questions about where I was going, who I was talking to, what I was planning. Just want to make sure you're being realistic, sweetie, she'd say, her voice dripping with false concern. Not everyone is cut out for medical school. Have you thought about something more practical? Maybe cosmetology school? Or you could take a gap year, work full-time, contribute to the household. Contribute to the household. As if I hadn't been buying my own food for months. As if my paychecks weren't covering the utilities she forgot to pay. 2 months before graduation, I came home to find my acceptance letter to Stanford Medical School torn in half on my bed. Oh, I'm so sorry, Victoria said when I confronted her, her hand pressed to her chest in mock horror. I thought it was junk mail. You get so many college letters, I can't keep track of which ones matter. She knew. She absolutely knew. That's when I started keeping everything important in my locker at school. Documents, letters, my laptop, anything I couldn't afford to lose. I slept with my phone under my pillow because I didn't trust her not to take it. I started eating lunch in my car because Derek had started making comments about my body, about how I was filling out, and the way he looked at me made my skin crawl. Mrs. Chun noticed the changes. Dakota, is everything okay at home? I wanted to tell her. God, I wanted to tell someone. But what would I say? That my stepmother was mean to me? That I overheard a conversation that might have been taken out of context? That I had a bad feeling? Adults don't intervene based on bad feelings. They need proof, evidence, bruises you can photograph. Victoria was too smart to leave bruises. Everything's fine. I lied. Just stressed about finals. The lies came easier after that. Graduation was set for June 15th, 2 days after my 18th birthday. I'd been planning for months. The second I had that diploma, I was gone. I had $3,847 saved up. I had a friend, Jessica Tanaka, who'd already left for summer semester at State and said I could crash on her dorm room floor until I figured things out. I had 3 scholarship applications still pending, any one of which would be enough to cover my first year. I just had to make it to graduation day. June 13th, my birthday, Victoria made a cake. Actually made a cake, from scratch, with my name in perfect cursive frosting. Derek grilled steaks. They sang happy birthday. They gave me a card with $50 in it. We're so proud of you, sweetie, Victoria said, hugging me tight enough that I could smell her perfume, the same scent she'd worn to my father's funeral. Graduating top of your class. Your father would be so proud. I wanted to believe it. Even knowing what I knew, some desperate part of me wanted to believe that maybe I'd been wrong. Maybe they did care. Maybe everything would be okay. That night, I overheard them again. You really think she bought it? Derek asked. Completely. Did you see her face? She's so desperate for approval she'd believe anything. Victoria's laugh was sharp, cutting. 2 more days and she's someone else's problem. I already have the locksmith coming tomorrow morning to change the locks. What about her stuff? What stuff? Clothes? Books? Let her take what she can carry. Everything else goes to Goodwill. That room is becoming your home gym like we planned. My home gym. My bedroom, with its pale blue walls that my mom had painted when I was 6, was becoming a home gym. I didn't sleep that night. I packed a bag with everything that mattered. Photos of my parents, my laptop, documents, clothes, my acceptance letters. I packed it all and hid the bag in my car, parked 3 blocks away where they wouldn't see me loading it. June 14th, the day before graduation, I barely came home. I stayed late at school, helping set up the ceremony. I worked a double shift at the diner, pocketing an extra $120 in tips. I sat in my car in a parking lot until midnight, working on my valedictorian speech, the words swimming on the screen because I was so tired I could barely see straight. When I finally came home, all the lights were off. I crept in through the side door, the one that didn't creak, and made it to my room without waking anyone. My alarm was set for 5 a.m. Graduation wasn't until 2 p.m., but I had a shift at the coffee shop first, one last paycheck before I disappeared. I'd sleep in my car if I had to. I'd shower at the gym. I just had to make it through one more day. But when my alarm went off, I smelled coffee. Fresh coffee. And bacon. I found Victoria in the kitchen, fully dressed, makeup perfect, cooking breakfast like she was auditioning for a cooking show. Good morning, graduate. She smiled. That empty smile that never touched her eyes. I wanted to make you a special breakfast before your big day. We're so proud of you, Dakota.
So proud.
The eggs tasted like ash, but I ate them because refusing felt dangerous. Derek came down in his bathrobe, squeezed my shoulder too hard, told me I looked all grown up in a way that made me want to shower. I left for work at 6:30. Victoria hugged me at the door. We'll see you at the ceremony, sweetie. 2 p.m. sharp. We wouldn't miss it for the world. I should have known. I should have known that hug lasted too long. I should have noticed the way Derek watched me leave, that satisfied smirk on his face. I should have trusted my instincts. But I was 19, exhausted, running on fumes and hope. I didn't see it coming. My shift at the coffee shop was brutal. Friday morning rush. Everyone wanting complicated drinks. Everyone in a hurry. I spilled a latte on my shoes. I burned my hand on the steam wand. I dropped a whole tray of pastries because my hands wouldn't stop shaking from nerves and exhaustion. You okay, Dakota? My manager, Tom, was a good guy, early 30s, actually gave a damn about his employees. You look like you're about to fall over. Just tired. Big day. Graduation, right? You're giving the speech? Valedictorian speech, yeah. You prepared? I touched my pocket where I'd folded up my notes. As ready as I'll ever be. I left work at noon, 2 hours before the ceremony. Enough time to go home, shower, change into the dress I'd hidden in my closet, do my makeup, get to the school. I'd planned everything down to the minute. I pulled up to the house at 12:15. Victoria's car was in the driveway. So was Derek's truck. I remember feeling relieved. They were home. They'd be ready to leave soon for the ceremony. Everything was normal. I used my key on the front door. It didn't work. I tried it again, thinking I'd just turned it wrong. The key slid in but wouldn't turn. I tried the side door. Same thing. The back door. Nothing. That's when I noticed it. The locks were new. Bright brass, freshly installed, not the old weathered bronze that had been there yesterday. She'd actually done it. She'd actually changed the locks. I knocked. Quietly at first, then louder.
Victoria?
Derek? I need to get in. I need to get ready for graduation. Nothing. I called Victoria's phone. It rang inside the house. I could hear it, but she didn't answer. I called Derek.
Same thing.
Panic started creeping in, cold and sharp. My graduation gown was inside. My dress. My makeup. My printed speech. Everything I needed was inside that house. I pounded on the door.
Victoria.
This isn't funny. Let me in. A window cracked open upstairs. Victoria leaned out, her face composed, almost bored. Oh, Dakota. I'm sorry, sweetie, but you don't live here anymore. You're 18 now. An adult. Time to figure things out on your own. The window closed. I stood there in my coffee-stained work clothes, smelling like espresso and sweat, with exactly 90 minutes before I was supposed to give the most important speech of my life, and I couldn't get into my own house. That's when I noticed the black garbage bags piled by the garage. My clothes, my books, my childhood stuffed animals, my mother's jewelry box, everything I owned, thrown out like trash. And I finally understood that Victoria had never planned to come to my graduation at all. What happens next? Can Dakota make it to her graduation? What is this global award, and how will it change everything? Drop a like if you're already hooked, subscribe to find out what happens when that helicopter lands, and comment below if you've ever had someone underestimate you right before you prove them completely wrong. But trust me, you need to hear what happened next. Because while I stood there on that doorstep, locked out and broken, I had no idea that 3 phone calls were about to come in that would change my life forever. So let me tell you about the next hour. Let me tell you about the choice I had to make. And let me tell you about the moment I realized that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you is actually the universe clearing the path for something so much better than you could have ever imagined. I sat on the curb next to those garbage bags, my phone clutched in my shaking hands, and let myself cry for exactly 3 minutes. That's all I could afford. 3 minutes of complete breakdown, tears mixing with the sweat and coffee stains on my shirt, before I had to pull myself together and figure out what the hell to do next. My phone buzzed. Jessica. Dakota. Where are you? Mrs. Chun is freaking out. You're supposed to be here for the pre-ceremony lineup in 30 minutes. I can't get into my house. Victoria changed the locks. All my stuff is in garbage bags on the lawn, and I don't have my gown or my speech or anything and... Stop.
Breathe.
Where are you right now? Sitting outside like an idiot. Grab what you need from those bags and get to my mom's house. She's your size. We'll find you something to wear. Move, Dakota.
Now.
Jessica's mom, Karen Tanaka, was the kind of woman my mother would have been friends with. Warm, practical, the type who kept spare everything in her closet just in case. When I showed up at her door, still crying, holding a wrinkled blouse and skirt I'd pulled from a garbage bag, she didn't ask questions. She just pulled me inside. Shower's upstairs. You have 15 minutes. I'll find you a dress and do your makeup in the car. Go. I showered in 7 minutes, my brain running through everything I'd lost. My printed speech was gone, but I'd memorized it weeks ago. My graduation gown was inside the locked house, but the school had extras. I could do this. I had to do this. Karen handed me a simple navy dress when I came downstairs, professional and elegant. Nothing like the flowery thing I'd planned to wear, but so much better. She'd even found nude heels that actually fit. My daughter told me about your stepmother, Karen said, applying concealer under my eyes with quick, expert strokes while Jessica drove like a maniac toward the school. After this is over, we're calling a lawyer. What she's doing is illegal. Your father left you that money. I don't have money for a lawyer. You let me worry about that. Right now, you focus on your speech. You've earned this day, Dakota. Don't let her take it from you. We pulled up to the school with 8 minutes to spare. Mrs. Chin practically dragged me out of the car. Thank God. I have your gown. Your cords. Everything's ready. Are you okay to do this? Was I okay? I was homeless. My stepmother had literally thrown me out like garbage. I was wearing borrowed clothes, and my hands wouldn't stop shaking.
Ai fine. Ilig.
The ceremony started. I sat in the front row with the other honor students, trying to focus on the principal's opening remarks, but all I could think about was what came next. After the ceremony, I had nowhere to go. No home. No family. Just whatever I could fit in my car, and the money I'd managed to save. My phone vibrated in my pocket. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. Then it buzzed again. And again. 3 missed calls from numbers I didn't recognize. 3 voicemails waiting. The principal called my name. And now, our valedictorian, Dakota Pierce, will address the graduating class. I stood up, walked to the podium, and my phone buzzed one more time. I had no idea those 4 phone calls were about to change everything. But first, I had to give the speech of my life to a crowd that included 2 empty seats where my family should have been sitting. I stood at that podium, looking out at 300 graduates and their families, and my prepared speech died in my throat. I'd written something safe. Something about perseverance and following dreams and the future being bright. Generic inspiration that would get polite applause and be forgotten by dinner. But standing there, seeing those 2 empty seats in the parent section, something snapped inside me. I wrote a speech about hope. I started, my voice stronger than I felt. About how hard work pays off and good things come to those who wait. About family and support and gratitude. I paused, gripping the podium. I'm not giving that speech. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Mrs. Chen's eyes went wide. The principal shifted in his seat. 3 hours ago, my stepmother locked me out of my house, changed the locks on my 18th birthday, and threw everything I own into garbage bags on the lawn. She took the money my father left for my education and spent it on her boyfriend's truck. She promised my dying father she'd take care of me, and instead, she made sure I'd have nothing. The auditorium went dead silent. I'm telling you this because half of you sitting here have your own versions of Victoria. Someone who told you that you weren't good enough. Someone who wanted you to fail. Someone who smiled to your face while planning your destruction behind your back. And I need you to hear this. My hands stopped shaking. The words poured out, raw and real. They don't get to win. They don't get to write your story. I'm standing here in a borrowed dress with nowhere to sleep tonight, and I'm still graduating top of this class. I still got into Stanford Medical School. I still have a future, and it's going to be so much bigger than anything they tried to take from me. I looked directly at the camera filming the ceremony, knowing Victoria might watch this later. Thank you for showing me exactly who you are. Thank you for making me strong enough to survive without you. And thank you for getting out of my way. The applause started slow, then built into a roar. Students stood. Parents stood. Mrs. Chen was crying. I walked off that stage feeling like I'd just burned down my entire past, and I didn't care. That's when I finally checked my phone. For voicemails. For missed calls from the past hour. The first one made my knees weak. Miss Pierce, this is Amanda Rothschild from the Geneva Institute for Global Youth Development. We've been trying to reach you for the past week. Your nomination for the International Youth Humanitarian Award was accepted. You've been selected as one of 3 global recipients this year. We need you to call us back immediately. The ceremony is in 72 hours in Switzerland, and we're arranging your travel. My brain couldn't process it. The Global Youth Humanitarian Award. I'd applied 8 months ago on Mrs. Chen's insistence, never thinking I had a chance. It was the most prestigious youth award in the world. Past recipients had gone on to start international nonprofits, work for the United Nations, change actual policy. The second voicemail was from Stanford. Dakota, this is Dean Richardson. The admissions committee has been informed of your award nomination. We'd like to discuss a full scholarship opportunity. Please contact my office. The third was from a lawyer. Miss Pierce, my name is Robert Fitzgerald. I represent your father's estate. Some irregularities have come to my attention regarding your trust fund. I believe we need to meet immediately. Your stepmother may have committed fraud. The fourth voicemail was Amanda Rothschild again, her voice urgent. Dakota, we're running out of time. The press conference is scheduled for tomorrow morning at your location. We're sending transportation to your school. A helicopter will arrive at 3 p.m. to bring you to the airport. We need confirmation that you're accepting the award. Please call back. I looked at my phone. It was 2:47 p.m. In 13 minutes, a helicopter was going to land on my school's football field. I was either having a complete mental breakdown or my life was about to change in ways I couldn't even comprehend. Behind me, I heard it, the distant thump of rotor blades cutting through air. The helicopter was early. The helicopter landed on the 50-yard line, like something out of a movie. Wind whipped through the crowd of graduates still milling around taking photos with their families. Parents grabbed their kids. Teachers shouted for everyone to stay back. And I just stood there, frozen, watching this massive black aircraft settle onto the grass with a logo I recognized from news coverage of international summits. The Geneva Institute. This was actually happening. A woman in a crisp white suit stepped out, her hair somehow perfect despite the rotor wash. She walked straight toward me, like she knew exactly who I was. Dakota Pierce? I nodded, unable to find words. Amanda Rothschild. I've been calling you for days. Do you have any idea how hard you are to track down? She smiled, but there was an edge to it. We have a plane waiting at the regional airport. You need to come with me right now. We have 72 hours to get you to Geneva, briefed, prepared, and presentable for the ceremony. Your speech alone needs at least 20 hours of prep work. My speech? I have to give another speech. You're receiving an award being broadcast to 47 countries. Yes, you're giving a speech. Where's your luggage? I almost laughed. In garbage bags on my stepmother's lawn. Amanda's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. The news crew mentioned your valedictorian speech. The one about being locked out. That was you. That was me. Good. That rage, that fire?
Keep it.
We're going to need it. She turned to someone behind her, a young guy with a tablet. Contact the Geneva wardrobe team. We're starting from scratch. And get legal on the phone. I want to know everything about this stepmother situation before we land. Everything moved so fast. Mrs. Chen appeared with my diploma and cords. Jessica hugged me, crying, making me promise to text her from Switzerland. Karen Tanaka pressed something into my hand, a small envelope. For emergencies, she whispered. And, Dakota? Make them remember your name. I climbed into the helicopter still wearing the borrowed dress and heels. Amanda sat across from me, already on her phone, already managing what she kept calling the situation. We need to be strategic about this, she said as we lifted off. Your story is incredibly compelling. Homeless valedictorian receives International Humanitarian Award. The press is going to eat it up. But we have to control the narrative. Control it how? Your stepmother.
Victoria.
We need to decide how much we're revealing and when. The award is for your volunteer work, your hours at the Children's Hospital, your mentorship programs. But your personal story adds a human element that could make this much bigger than a standard award ceremony. Something about the way she said it made my stomach turn. You want to use what Victoria did to me as a PR opportunity. I want to use your story to inspire millions of young people who are going through exactly what you went through. There's a difference. Amanda leaned forward. But I need to know everything.
No surprises.
What else has she done? So I told her. All of it. The slow isolation after Dad died. The financial manipulation. Derek's inappropriate comments. The systematic destruction of my support systems. The trust fund that should have had $400,000 but somehow had less than $30,000 when I finally got access to the statements. Amanda's assistant typed everything, his fingers flying across the tablet screen. This is good, Amanda said, and I hated that word. Good. Like my trauma was material to be packaged and sold. Is it true? I asked. The award? Or is this just about the story? For the first time, Amanda's professional mask cracked. She pulled out her own tablet and showed me a document. My application from 8 months ago. Pages of recommendation letters. Documentation of every volunteer hour I'd logged. Photos from the Children's Hospital where I'd spent every Tuesday and Thursday for 2 years, reading to kids with cancer, playing games with them, helping them forget for a few hours that they were sick. You earned this, Amanda said quietly. Everything else is just noise. But Dakota, you need to understand what's about to happen. The second we land, the second this goes public, your life stops being private. Every detail will be examined. Victoria will be found. The press will dig up everything. My phone buzzed. A text from a number I didn't recognize. I see you made the news. You ungrateful little brat. Enjoy your 15 minutes. When you come crawling back, the door stays locked. Victoria had seen the helicopter. She was watching, and she had no idea what was coming for her. The private jet was the nicest place I'd ever been, and I couldn't enjoy a second of it. Amanda had me on a video call with lawyers before we even reached cruising altitude. Miss Pierce, I'm Robert Fitzgerald. I've been investigating your father's estate for the past 6 months at the request of your father's business partner, Harold Chen. Harold Chen? Mrs. Chen's husband.
Yes.
He and your father co-owned Pierce and Chen Medical Supply. When your father died, Mr. Chen noticed irregularities in how the estate was being handled. It took time to gather evidence, but what we've found is substantial. He shared his screen. Bank statements. Forged signatures. Transactions dated within weeks of my father's death. Your stepmother had power of attorney, which gave her access to manage your father's affairs during the estate settlement. She was supposed to preserve assets for your benefit as the primary beneficiary. Instead, she systematically drained every account she could access. The numbers made me sick. $47,000 to a car dealership for Derek's truck. $32,000 to a plastic surgeon. $28,000 to a casino in Atlantic City. Hundreds of smaller transactions. Dinners, clothes, trips, jewelry. My college fund bleeding out while I worked 3 jobs and ate ramen. The trust itself was protected, but she found ways around that too. She claimed estate management fees that were completely fabricated. She billed your father's estate for your living expenses at rates 3 times what she actually spent. She even tried to have you declared a dependent adult requiring managed care, which would have given her access to the full trust. How is that legal? It's not. It's fraud. It's embezzlement. And we have more than enough evidence to file criminal charges. I should have felt vindicated. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I felt hollow. How long have you known? I asked quietly. Fitzgerald hesitated. We suspected for about 4 months. We've had concrete evidence for 6 weeks. 6 weeks. And nobody told me. We needed ironclad documentation before we could act. If we tipped her off early, she could have hidden evidence, moved assets offshore, made the case much harder to prove. 6 weeks. 6 weeks while I'd been terrified about how I'd pay for college. 6 weeks while I'd worked myself to exhaustion. 6 weeks while Victoria had smiled at me across the dinner table, knowing she was robbing me blind. There's something else, Fitzgerald continued, and his tone made my blood run cold. We found communications between Victoria and someone at Stanford. Emails discussing your acceptance, your scholarship applications, your financial aid. Amanda sat up straighter beside me. What kind of communications? Attempts at sabotage. Victoria contacted the financial aid office claiming Dakota had misrepresented her financial situation. She sent emails to the admissions department suggesting Dakota had plagiarized her application essays. She even filed a false police report claiming Dakota had stolen money from her, trying to create a criminal record that would jeopardize the acceptance. The cabin tilted. Or maybe that was just me. None of it worked, Fitzgerald said quickly. Stanford investigated every claim and found them baseless. But she tried, Dakota. She actively tried to destroy your future. I couldn't breathe. The borrowed dress felt too tight. The leather seat felt like it was swallowing me. Why? My voice cracked. Why would she hate me that much? What did I ever do to her? You existed, Amanda said softly. You were evidence that your father had a life before her. You were a claim on money she wanted for herself. You were young and smart and had a future, and some people can't stand watching others succeed when they feel like failures. My phone started buzzing. Texts flooding in, dozens of them. The news had broken. Not about the award. About Victoria. Someone had leaked the story. Teen valedictorian locked out by stepmother on graduation day. Fraud investigation underway. Stepmom from hell. How Victoria Pierce stole her stepdaughter's future. Cinderella's story goes viral. Dakota Pierce's road to Geneva. The texts kept coming. Friends I hadn't talked to in years.
Teachers.
Random people from school. Everyone had seen it. The helicopter landing was already all over social media. My valedictorian speech was going viral. Someone had filmed Victoria's window slamming shut and posted it with the caption, "Evil stepmom gets caught." Then one text made everything stop. From Derek, "You stupid bitch.
You just destroyed our lives."
Victoria's been arrested. They froze all our accounts. I hope you're happy." I looked at Amanda. "Victoria's been arrested?" She checked her phone, then nodded slowly. Fitzgerald must have moved fast once the story went public. Fraud charges. Embezzlement.
Forgery.
She's looking at serious prison time, if convicted. I waited for the satisfaction to hit. The vindication. The justice. Instead, I just felt tired. "I didn't want this," I whispered. "I just wanted her to leave me alone. I just wanted to go to college and become a doctor and make my parents proud. I never wanted to destroy anyone." Amanda put her hand on mine. "Dakota, you didn't destroy her. She destroyed herself. You're just the first person who refused to stay silent about it." Outside the window, clouds stretched forever in every direction. Somewhere below, Victoria sat in a jail cell. Somewhere below, my entire life was being dissected by strangers. And somewhere ahead, in Geneva, the entire world was waiting to hear what I had to say. Geneva was beautiful, and I hated it. They put me up in a hotel that cost more per night than I'd made in a month waitressing. They gave me a schedule packed so tight, I could barely breathe. Media training at 6 a.m., wardrobe fittings at 8, speech coaching at 10, interview prep at noon. Every single hour accounted for, every single moment managed. And through it all, my phone kept buzzing with messages from a life that was falling apart back home. Derek sent 12 texts that first night, each one angrier than the last. Threats about lawsuits, about how I'd pay for ruining their lives, about how Victoria was innocent, and I was an ungrateful liar who'd fabricated everything for attention. I blocked his number. He created new ones. Then came the messages I wasn't expecting. Victoria's sister, Aunt Marie, who I'd met exactly twice. "How could you do this to your family? Victoria loved you like a daughter. She sacrificed everything for you after your father died. You've always been selfish, but this is unforgivable." People from my dad's side, distant cousins I barely knew. "Your father would be ashamed of what you've become. Destroying Victoria's life for attention and money." Even some kids from school, people who'd smiled at me in the hallways. "This is so messed up. She gave you a home, and you sent her to jail? You could have just moved out." The comments on the news articles were worse. Thousands of strangers who'd never met me, never met Victoria, deciding who was telling the truth based on nothing but their own biases. "She doesn't look homeless. That dress is designer. Borrowed." I wanted to scream at my phone. "It's borrowed." This is what happens when you raise entitled kids. One little fight, and they call the police. One little fight? I typed and deleted a dozen responses. They didn't know. They didn't understand. But some of the comments cut deeper because they asked questions I'd been asking myself. If it was so bad, why didn't she report it sooner? Why didn't she go to the police when she first suspected fraud? This seems convenient, getting arrested right when the girl gets famous. Amanda found me at 2 a.m., sitting on the bathroom floor of my hotel room, scrolling through comments with tears streaming down my face. "Give me your phone."
No.
"Dakota, give me the phone." She crouched down beside me. "You're torturing yourself. They think I'm lying. They think I made this up for attention. What if they're right? What if I could have handled this differently? What if I'm the villain, and I don't even realize it? Stop. Listen to me." Amanda took my face in her hands, forcing me to look at her. "This is what abusers do. They make you question your own reality. They make you feel guilty for surviving them. Victoria stole from you. She locked you out of your home. She tried to sabotage your education. None of that changes because people on the internet have opinions. But what if the award committee sees this? What if they think I'm just using them for publicity? What if they think I'm..." The committee already knows everything. They've known for days. You think we give awards to people without vetting them completely? We have investigators, Dakota. We have your school records, your volunteer logs, testimonies from the families at the children's hospital. We know exactly who you are. Then why does it feel like I'm falling apart? Amanda sat down beside me on the cold tile floor. Because you're 19 years old and your entire life just exploded. Because you're exhausted and traumatized and you've been running on adrenaline for weeks. Because healing isn't linear and sometimes the victory doesn't feel like victory at all. My phone buzzed again. I couldn't help looking. Mrs. Chun. Dakota, please call me. Harold, and I have been trying to reach you. There's something about your father you need to know. My stomach dropped. What could they possibly need to tell me about my dad now? I called. Mrs. Chun answered on the first ring. Dakota, thank God. Are you somewhere private? I'm in my hotel room with Amanda. What's going on? Harold's been going through your father's files for the legal case. He found something. Letters. Dated from before your father died. What kind of letters? Mrs. Chen's voice cracked. Letters to a lawyer about divorcing Victoria. Your father was planning to leave her. He'd discovered she was cheating with Derek. He'd found evidence she'd married him for his money. He was going to file for divorce the week after he died. The bathroom spun. There's more, Mrs. Chen continued. He'd changed his will. Cut Victoria out completely. Made Harold the executor, specifically to protect you. But he died before the new will was finalized, before he could file the divorce papers. Everything he did to protect you died with him. So, if he'd lived one more week, you would have been safe. Victoria would have been out of your life. The money would have been protected. Everything would have been different. I hung up and threw my phone across the bathroom. It hit the marble wall and shattered. My father had known. He'd figured it out. He'd tried to save me. And then his heart gave out, and I'd spent 3 years living with the woman who destroyed him. Amanda pulled me into her arms while I sobbed, and for the first time since this started, I let myself completely break. Because sometimes the worst part isn't what they did to you. It's realizing how close you came to being saved.
I didn't sleep that night.
I sat on the balcony of my hotel room, watching Geneva wake up beneath a sky that shifted from black to purple to gold, and I made a list on hotel stationery of every reason I should get on a plane and go home. 1. I didn't belong here. I was a kid from nowhere who'd gotten lucky, not some international humanitarian who deserved awards and press conferences. 2. Every minute I spent in Geneva was another minute the people back home had to twist the narrative, to paint me as the villain, to convince the world that Victoria was the victim. 3. My father had tried to save me and failed. Maybe that meant I was supposed to fail too. Maybe some people were just destined to be broken. I was on reason 17 when someone knocked on my door. It was barely 6 a.m. I opened it to find a girl about my age, maybe 20, with dark circles under her eyes that matched mine. She wore jeans and a hoodie, not the formal business attire everyone else in Geneva seemed to live in. You're Dakota Pierce.
Yeah. I'm Memare Akafer.
I won this award 2 years ago. Amanda sent me. She thought we should talk. I let her in because I was too tired to question it. Amara walked straight to my balcony, saw the list, and picked it up without asking permission. She read it in silence, then looked at me with eyes that had seen too much for someone so young. Nigeria, she said. That's where I'm from. My village was destroyed by Boko Haram when I was 14. My parents were killed. My brothers were taken. I survived by hiding in a well for 3 days, drinking rainwater and eating insects. I couldn't find words. I made it to a refugee camp. Spent 2 years there. Started teaching other kids to read using sticks in the dirt because we had no books, no paper, nothing. Someone filmed it, posted it online, and it went viral. That's how the Geneva Institute found me. She sat on the balcony railing like she didn't care that we were 12 stories up. When I got the award, I had people telling me I was exploiting my trauma for attention. That I was a liar. That I probably made up the story about my village for sympathy. Someone started a conspiracy theory that I was actually a paid actress hired by the UN to make refugees look sympathetic. That's insane. That's humanity. Some people can't handle other people's suffering because it makes them feel guilty for their own comfort. So they decide the suffering must be fake. She handed me back my list. You want to know what I learned? I nodded. The people who are mad at you for telling the truth are the people who benefit from the lie. Victoria stole from you, but she's not the only villain in this story. Everyone who's calling you a liar right now, they're protecting themselves. Because if they admit that what happened to you is real and wrong, they have to admit they've ignored it happening to other people. They have to admit they might be complicit in their own families, their own lives. It's easier to call you a liar. She pulled out her phone and showed me an article. This is from yesterday. A woman in Ohio came forward saying she went through the same thing with her stepfather. He drained her college fund, and she never reported it because she was ashamed. She said watching your story gave her the courage to file charges. She scrolled to another one. This is from this morning. A teenager in Australia whose foster parents were stealing her disability payments. She contacted authorities because of you. Do you understand what I'm saying? That my trauma is helping other people? That your courage is helping other people find theirs. There's a difference. Amara stood up. You want to know the real question you should be asking yourself? What? Not whether you deserve this award. Not whether you belong here. The question is what you're going to do with the platform you've been given. Because that stage tomorrow, those cameras, that's power, Dakota. And you get to decide how to use it. She left as quickly as she'd come, and I sat alone with the sunrise and a completely different kind of list forming in my head. What did I want to say? Amanda found me at 8 a.m., showered and dressed, sitting at the desk with pages of notes. You look different, she said carefully. I want to change my speech. Dakota, we've been working on that speech for days. The teleprompter is already programmed. I don't need a teleprompter. I need to tell the truth. You're telling the truth. No, I'm telling a sanitized version that makes everyone comfortable. I'm giving them inspiration without the mess. I want to talk about the nights I slept in my car. I want to talk about the shame of eating from food banks while wearing my school uniform. I want to talk about how I still have nightmares about that locked door, about standing outside my own home and realizing nobody was coming to save me. Amanda was quiet for a long moment. The committee won't like it. I don't care. The press might twist it. They're already twisting it. Your stepmother's lawyers could use it against you. I met her eyes. Let them. Everything I'm going to say is true, and I have nothing left to lose. That was the moment I realized I'd already made my choice. Somewhere between reading those articles about other survivors and watching the sun rise over a city I'd never dreamed I'd see, I'd stopped running from my story and decided to own it. Amanda smiled, slow and genuine. Okay, let's rewrite the speech. But Dakota, if we're doing this, we're doing it right. No holding back. No protecting people who don't deserve it. You tell your truth, all of it. All of it, I agreed. My phone buzzed. A new number, but I recognized the tone immediately.
Derek.
The lawyer says if you go through with this speech, if you keep talking to the press, we'll sue you for defamation. We'll take everything you have. We'll make sure you never work as a doctor, because no hospital will touch someone with our lawsuit hanging over them. Stop now, or we destroy you. I showed the text to Amanda. She took my phone and typed a response. See you in court. Then she blocked the number and handed it back. Now, she said, pulling out her laptop. Let's write a speech that sets the world on fire. We had 18 hours until the ceremony. 18 hours to craft the words that would either vindicate everything I'd survived or destroy what was left of my reputation. And for the first time since that helicopter landed, I wasn't scared. I was ready. The auditorium seated 2,000 people, but it felt like the entire world was watching. Cameras from 47 countries. Live stream viewers in the millions. Diplomats, activists, celebrities, journalists. And somewhere in that sea of faces, I knew people back home were watching too. Jessica and her parents. Mrs. Chun. My classmates. And Victoria, probably from a TV in whatever holding facility they'd placed her in. I sat backstage in a gown that cost more than my car, my hands folded in my lap to keep them from shaking. Two other recipients sat beside me. Amara gave me an encouraging nod. The third recipient, a boy from Syria who'd saved 30 children from a bombed school, looked as terrified as I felt. Amanda appeared in the wings. 5 minutes. You ready? I touched the note cards in my lap. My rewritten speech. The truth, unfiltered and raw. What if I freeze up there? Then you freeze. But Dakota, I've watched you survive things that would break most people. A stage isn't going to be what takes you down. The ceremony began with all the formality and grandeur you'd expect from an international event. Speeches from the Institute director, from various dignitaries, from last year's recipients. The Syrian boy went first, his translator's voice cracking with emotion as he described pulling children from rubble while bombs still fell. The audience wept openly. Amara went second, and she was magnificent. She spoke about education as resistance, about how teaching kids to read in a refugee camp was an act of defiance against everyone who wanted to erase them. She spoke about rebuilding not just schools but hope. Standing ovation. Then they called my name. Our final recipient tonight represents the countless young people who face adversity not on battlefields or in refugee camps, but in their own homes. Who survive betrayal not from distant enemies, but from the people who should protect them. Dakota Pierce has spent the last 4 years volunteering over 800 hours at children's hospitals, founded 3 mentorship programs for underprivileged students, and maintained perfect grades while working multiple jobs to support herself. Please welcome Dakota Pierce. I walked onto that stage, and the lights were blinding. I couldn't see the audience, which somehow made it easier. I stepped up to the podium, looked at my note cards one last time, then set them aside. I was supposed to give you an inspirational speech about perseverance. I began, my voice echoing through the massive space, about overcoming obstacles and achieving dreams. But I think you've heard enough polished speeches tonight. I think you deserve the messy truth instead. I saw Amanda in the wings, her eyes wide. I'd gone off script even from the rewrite. 3 weeks ago, I was homeless. My stepmother locked me out of my house on my graduation day, changed the locks, and threw everything I owned into garbage bags on the lawn. She'd spent 3 years systematically stealing the money my father left for my education, money he'd saved his entire life to give me. And when I found out, when I finally spoke up about it, half the world called me a liar. The audience was dead silent. I'm not telling you this for sympathy. I'm telling you this because there are millions of people watching tonight who know exactly what it feels like to be betrayed by someone who's supposed to love you, who know what it's like to be told you're crazy, dramatic, ungrateful, when you try to tell the truth about your own life. My voice got stronger. My stepmother, Victoria Pierce, is currently facing multiple felony charges for fraud and embezzlement. The evidence against her is overwhelming. Bank statements, forged signatures, documented lies. But even with all that proof, I still get messages every day calling me a liar, telling me I'm destroying a good woman's life for attention, telling me I should be ashamed. I gripped the podium, and I spent weeks wondering if they were right, if maybe I was the problem, if maybe I should have stayed quiet, kept the peace, protected her reputation instead of protecting myself. Because that's what we're taught, isn't it? That keeping the family together matters more than keeping ourselves safe. That speaking up about abuse makes you the troublemaker, not the person who abused you. Someone in the audience started clapping. Then another. Then a whole section stood up. But here's what I learned. I waited for the applause to die down. Silence protects predators. It doesn't protect victims. Every day I stayed silent about what Victoria was doing, she got bolder. Every time I made excuses for her behavior, she took it as permission to go further. And every time I thought about speaking up, but didn't because I was afraid of what people would think, she stole a little more of my future. I pulled out my phone, hand steady now. I want to read you something. This is a text message I received yesterday from Derek Holloway, my stepmother's boyfriend. Quote, "If you go through with this speech, we'll sue you for defamation. We'll destroy you. We'll make sure you never work as a doctor because no hospital will touch you with our lawsuit hanging over them." End quote. The audience gasped. This is what accountability looks like to abusers. Threats, intimidation, trying to silence you even after they've been caught. And I want everyone watching to understand something. They're not threatening me because I'm lying. They're threatening me because I'm telling the truth, and the truth has consequences they don't want to face. I looked directly into the main camera. So here's my message to everyone who's tried to silence me, discredit me, or make me feel small. I'm not your victim anymore. I'm not the scared teenager standing outside a locked door, begging to be let in. I'm someone who survived you. Someone who's going to medical school. Someone who's standing on this stage accepting an international award while you sit in a cell waiting for trial. My voice dropped, intimate now. And to everyone watching who sees themselves in my story, who's lived through their own version of Victoria, I want you to hear this. You're not crazy. You're not dramatic. You are not ungrateful or selfish or wrong for wanting to be treated with basic human decency. The people who gaslight you, who steal from you, who abuse your trust, they are counting on your silence. They are banking on your shame. I paused, letting the words settle. Don't give it to them. The applause started before I could continue, building like a wave. People standing, shouting, crying. I saw Amara in the wings with tears streaming down her face. Amanda had her hand over her mouth. I accept this award not just for myself, but for every person who's been told their truth doesn't matter. For every kid who's been failed by the adults who were supposed to protect them. For every survivor who's been blamed for the abuse they endured. I held up the crystal award they'd presented before my speech. And I dedicate it to my father, James Pierce, who tried to save me and died before he could. Dad, I hope wherever you are, you know that I made it. Despite everything, I made it. The standing ovation lasted 7 minutes. The aftermath of the speech was a blur of camera flashes and interview requests and people wanting to shake my hand, hug me, tell me their own stories. But the moment that mattered most came 3 hours after I left that stage. I was back in my hotel room, finally alone, finally able to breathe, when my phone rang. Robert Fitzgerald, the lawyer. Dakota, I'm watching the news coverage of your speech. You should see this. He sent me a link. The video had already been viewed 18 million times. But that wasn't what he wanted me to see. It was the comments, the thousands upon thousands of comments, but specifically one section he'd highlighted. A comment from someone named Jennifer Hastings. I worked with Victoria Pierce at the salon 5 years ago. She used to brag about how she'd landed a rich widower and was just waiting for the right time to cash in. She told me his daughter was collateral damage, but it would be worth it. I thought she was joking. I'm so sorry I never said anything. Below that, dozens more. A former neighbor. I saw Victoria throwing Dakota's belongings in the trash. When I asked if Dakota knew, she laughed and said the girl would figure it out eventually. I should have called someone. I didn't know it was this bad. Someone who'd worked at my dad's company. James Pierce told me a week before he died that he'd made a terrible mistake marrying Victoria. He said he was going to fix it. I never knew what he meant until now. Even one from a former friend of Derek's. Derek used to show me texts from Victoria talking about how much money she was going to get once she got rid of the kid. He thought it was funny. I'm ashamed I laughed along. Witnesses. Corroboration. People who'd seen pieces of the truth and stayed silent, now coming forward because they couldn't stay silent anymore. This changes everything, Fitzgerald said. Victoria's defense was going to be that you fabricated everything out of spite. Now we have independent witnesses confirming her intent, her planning, her own words. Dakota, she's going to prison.
There's no way around it now.
I should have felt victorious. Instead, I just felt sad. What about the money? The trust fund. We're recovering what we can. Some of it's gone, spent on things we can't recoup. But we're estimating you'll get back about $270,000. Not everything your father left you, but enough. Enough for medical school. Enough to start over. And there's more, Fitzgerald continued. Harold Chun, your father's partner, wants to establish a scholarship in your father's name for students who've lost parents or been failed by the system. He's putting up $50,000 a year, and he wants you to help select the recipients. The Pierce Memorial Scholarship. My dad's legacy, helping kids like me. I don't know what to say. Say yes. Say you'll help us make sure what happened to you doesn't happen to others.
I said yes.
The next call came 20 minutes later. Dean Richardson from Stanford. Miss Pierce, I've been authorized to offer you a full scholarship to Stanford Medical School. Tuition, room, board, and a stipend for living expenses. Additionally, we'd like you to speak at our incoming class orientation about resilience and ethics in medicine. I accept, I said, and started crying for the first time all day. The calls kept coming. A publisher wanting to option my story for a book. A nonprofit asking me to join their board advocating for foster youth and financial abuse survivors. 3 different universities wanting me to give commencement speeches. But the message that broke me came at 2 a.m. when I should have been sleeping but was still riding the adrenaline high of the day. It was from a girl named Sophie, age 16. She'd watched my speech with her stepfather, who'd been controlling her money, isolating her from friends, making her feel crazy for questioning him. I showed my school counselor your speech today, she wrote. I told her everything. She called CPS. They're investigating. I'm scared, but I wanted to thank you. You saved my life, and you don't even know me. I read that message 10 times, then 20, then lost count. This was what it meant. This was why the pain had been worth surviving. The trial happened 4 months later. I'd started at Stanford by then, settled into a tiny apartment near campus, begun the grueling first year of medical school. But I flew back for the sentencing. Victoria looked smaller in her orange jumpsuit. Older. Her hair had gone gray at the roots, and she wouldn't meet my eyes when I walked into the courtroom. Derek sat in the gallery, his face hard with anger that had nowhere to go. The judge was a woman in her 60s with kind eyes and zero tolerance for nonsense. Mrs. Pierce, you are entrusted with the care of a vulnerable child who'd lost both parents. Instead of honoring that trust, you exploited it for personal gain. You stole not just money, but security, stability, and peace of mind from someone who deserved your protection. Victoria's lawyer tried to argue for leniency, talked about her difficult childhood, her mental health struggles, how she'd made mistakes but didn't deserve prison. The judge cut him off. Your client didn't make mistakes. She made calculated choices over a period of years. The evidence shows premeditation, planning, and a complete absence of remorse. She looked at Victoria. 8 years in state prison. Restitution of $347,000 to the victim. And you are permanently barred from serving as executor, power of attorney, or guardian for any minor or incapacitated person. Victoria's face crumpled. Derek stood up, shouting about injustice, about how I'd ruined them, until security escorted him out. I sat quietly in the back row and felt nothing but relief. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. I gave them the statement Amanda and I had prepared. Justice today isn't about revenge. It's about accountability. It's about sending a message that financial abuse is real abuse and that young people deserve protection under the law. I hope this case helps other survivors come forward and get the help they need. Professional. Measured. Exactly what they expected. But later, in the parking garage, when it was just me and Mrs. Chun, I let myself be honest. I spent 3 years thinking I was the problem, I said. 3 years thinking if I just tried harder, was better, was quieter, that she'd love me. And now she's going to prison, and I still don't understand why she hated me so much. Mrs. Chun hugged me tight. Some people are just broken, sweetheart. And it was never your job to fix her. 2 years later, I stood in that same children's hospital where I'd volunteered as a teenager, but this time wearing a white coat with my name embroidered on it. Medical student, not volunteer. I was doing my pediatric rotation, working with kids who were fighting battles they shouldn't have to fight. One of them, a 7-year-old named Maya with leukemia, asked me why I became a doctor. I could have given her the easy answer. Because I like helping people. Because science is cool. Because I wanted to make a difference. Instead, I told her the truth. Because when I was your age, I learned that the world isn't always fair. That bad things happen to good people. That sometimes the people who are supposed to protect you don't. And I decided that I wanted to be someone who actually shows up. Someone who keeps their promises. Someone who fights for kids who can't fight for themselves.
Maya thought about that.
Like a superhero? Exactly like a superhero. Except instead of a cape, I wear this coat. And instead of superpowers, I have medicine and science and the ability to listen when people tell me they're hurting. She smiled, and I saw myself in her eyes. That hope, that resilience, that determination to survive. I got an email that night from the Pierce Memorial Scholarship Committee. We'd selected our 10th recipient, a girl from Nebraska whose guardian had been embezzling her Social Security benefits. The scholarship would cover her full ride to college, plus counseling and legal support. 10 kids in 2 years. 10 futures saved. It wasn't enough to erase what Victoria had done. Nothing would ever erase that. But it was something. It was proof that pain could be transformed into purpose. That survival could become service. I'm 23 now. Third-year medical student, specializing in pediatrics. I still have nightmares sometimes about that locked door, about standing outside in my graduation gown with nowhere to go. But I also have dreams about the hospital I'm going to open one day. A place specifically for kids from broken homes, broken systems, broken families. Where medical care is free and trauma-informed and nobody ever gets turned away because they can't pay. The Pierce Foundation, I'm going to call it. After my father, who tried to save me. After myself, who learned to save myself when he couldn't. Victoria gets out of prison in 6 years. I've already decided I won't be there when she does. I won't be waiting with forgiveness or reconciliation or any kind of relationship. Some bridges, once burned, should stay burned. But I'll be okay. Better than okay. I'll be exactly who I was always meant to be before she tried to break me. So that's my story. From a garbage bag on a lawn to a stage in Geneva to a white coat with my name on it. From homeless teenager to medical student to someone who gets to spend her life helping people heal. If you're watching this and you see yourself in my story, please hear me. You are not alone. You're not crazy. Your truth matters. Your future matters. And the people who try to steal it from you don't get to win unless you let them. Don't let them.
Fight. Speak.
Survive. And then take all that pain and turn it into something beautiful. Because that's the best revenge. Not destroying them, but building yourself into someone they could never break. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button. Subscribe for more stories about survival, resilience, and justice. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what part of this story hit you hardest. Thank you for listening. Thank you for believing. And thank you for being part of a community that refuses to let survivors be silenced. My name is Dakota Pierce, and I survived. But more importantly, I thrived. And so can you.